Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Hayley Mitchell Haugen. I'm the editor of Sheila-Na-Gig Online and Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. And tonight we are here to celebrate Buck Naked is the Opposite of Hate by Joe Cottonwood. Very excited to have this book out in the world and to have Joe here today with us. And after Joe's reading, we just have a few contributors to Sheila-Na-Gig Online who'll be sharing a couple poems as well. So welcome, everybody, and thanks for being here. So Sheila-Na-Gig Online has been running for 10 years now. Our summer issue will be 10.4. And Joe first appeared in Sheila-Na-Gig Online in issue 3.4. So Joe's been contributing to Sheila-Na-Gig for quite a while. And I remember getting Joe's submission and thinking, oh, Joe Cottonwood, because I was already aware of Joe Cottonwood just from, different journals, right, that you're in, and just seeing your work out in the world, and probably more in print journals than online, I think, at that point. And I just was so excited. It felt like, okay, people are hearing about, Sheila-Na-Gig. I don't know how you heard about us, but there you were. And then Joe went on to publish in 20 of our online issues. So that's really exciting to have the opportunity to publish someone a lot online, but then also to be able to support your work in the broader sense, right? And in this more kind of concrete sense that we can hold in our hand and love forever, which is really great. So I appreciate the opportunity for that. I'm going to read one of the blurbs on the back of Joe's book and then his bio, and then we'll let him go. So this blurb is from Shoshana Shai. She says, I never know where I'll be going when I read a Joe Cottonwood poem. It's as though he pulled up in a pickup truck, shouted, get in, and off we barrel down a dirt road, chunky with rocks and storm-torn branches, a ragtag assemblage of dogs barking in the back. Joe's poems are fresh and unroasted, like he just thought them up the minute ago, right there in your company. When you join him while he smooths pine sweet as sugar, or solders a copper pipe outside a McMansion, you'll share Joe's reverence for bird's eye maple, the warmth of water, and for the English language itself. I just love that blurb for the book. I think it captures so much. Most of you are here because you already know of Joe Cottonwood. For our online viewers who may not know him yet, Joe is a semi-retired contractor in the Santa Cruz Mountains of California, often nominated for Pushcart and Best of the Net. His poems have appeared in hundreds of journals, as well as on refrigerators, city buses, a nature trail, a billboard in Kew Gardens, that's in England, and on bottles of aromatherapy. He lives with his high school sweetheart under redwood trees among wagging tails and dog-eared pages. And that's tails with an A-L-E-S. So it's working both ways. Welcome, Joe. So great to have you here, and take it away for us.
Well, thank you, Hayley. It's funny that you already knew my name when I first submitted, because I didn't feel like I'd been around that much. I was making a transition from print journals to online journals, which I find far more pleasing to publish in the last few years. When you put it in an online journal, it stays out there, A print journal, yeah, what happens to it? It just kind of vanishes. Anyway, I am honored by all these faces that are showing up here. Yeah, they're people from my hometown, and they're people from writing groups I've been in, and it's just amazing to me to see you all. Shoshana, by the way, the blurb you read, Shoshana helped me with editing the book, so she's intimately involved in the quality of the book. Um, I can, again, I'm used to reading with two hands. I'm a two-handed reader. I gesture, and I've only got one hand I can move right now. So it's going to be a little odd. But I just want to ask, does anyone want any particular poem? I'll take requests from the book. I have a whole list here. I'm ready to read, but anytime you want, just break in.
You can't go
Um,
wrong, Joe.
okay. I'll just start out. The book starts out with this, and this is one of my favorite poems. So I'm just going to start here because it kind of sets so many of the themes that I come back to. Called A Feral Calico Cat. A feral calico cat used to sleep in my truck like a ghost, leaving the driver's seat warm, but gone when I'd arrive. Heard me, sharp ears. Sometimes on this console, she left a bat with wings intact, a baby rabbit, neck broken, rent paid. I set out kibble. She wouldn't touch. Never bore kittens, though I heard nights of yowling, fights. Later, her ears failed. I'd open the door, she'd startle awake, leap, clawed my shoulder once in her haste. Near the end, she ate the kibble, but still got skinny, ribs outlined. One day I found the food untouched. She'd vanished. Like most animals, she knew how to die. I tell you this because a while ago in the garage, I found two children, boy and girl, curled together in a filthy sleeping bag half under the truck. On the girl, arms like wire. On the boy, a scar like purple rope between ear and nose. Eyes that hold fear and keep secrets. I try to say, Estás a salvo aquí. You are safe here. They refuse to follow into mi casa. Quickly in the house, I grab fleece jackets, a box of Cheerios, a jug of milk, plus bowls and spoons. I come back out. Boy and girl are gone. There's an underground railroad of farm workers up the coast of California, but my garage is off the main track. An hour later, I'm loading corrugated drain pipe when a frantic woman shows up. She's short, ragged, missing one eye. Her language, not Spanish, not English, but with fingers on her face, she indicates the scar. Those were her kids. With a mother's super sense, she's tracking like a bloodhound. All I can do is point to where they slept and offer her some Cheerios, which she declines. She takes the jackets, and then she's gone. I return home after dark. Running late that morning, I'd left the milk and Cheerios on a toolbox. Now, nowhere in sight. Might have been an animal, except the bowls and spoons are upside down and on a smoothed out shop rag, washed and dried. Never see the kids or the one eyed woman again. Probably migrated north with the harvest. This much I know. Later, maybe a year, one morning on the console of my truck, I find a jelly jar of wildflowers, a paper bag of pears. Um, I was putting these poems together and thinking, there's a lot of California in my poems. I don't try to do it that way. I just live here. So, and people have this image of California as, LA or maybe the Bay Area, overpopulated, full of overprivileged snots. But it's still the Wild West out here. And anyone who lives in Oregon or Washington or California knows that you get out of the cities and you're out, you're in coyote country. You're it's it's still the West, and I love it. I just love it. And it comes into my poems a lot. Anyway, I also write about work. I'm retired. I'm a retired contractor. I spent, most of my life repairing houses. And here's a poem on that subject. It's called Ode to Replacing a 50-Gallon Water Heater. It was published in Sheila-Na-Gig. Wrestling the mass of a gorilla, but less furry, less flexible, removing crusty pipe amid fragrance of rat droppings. And it is wet, puddles and streams of wet, because that is why you called me. So I bring the tools, the knowledge I carry, the pride. There is delicacy in plumbing, an art that rises beyond skill, to turn tight, but not too, to thread tiny fittings, feathery fingertip, to vice-like hand strength, to lift large with visible results, a gleaming new tank. I bring warmth to your morning face, your dirty dishes, your strawberry shampoo hair. Think of me. I'm just telling you, don't take your plumber for granted. And he's a human being, he's not some brute. Um, Terry Adams is laughing. He's a, he's a plumber too. Um, all right, I'll introduce this next poem. Um, a few years ago, actually about 15 years ago now, I attended a backyard wedding of a it was a small gathering. One of my clients, her son was getting married in her backyard, and it was a small gathering because the bride's parents and her entire family refused to attend the wedding because the groom was the wrong color and the wrong religion. He had worked for me in construction until he decided he'd rather drive a truck, but we remained friends. And bride and groom had nothing, absolutely nothing in possessions, just love. But when I looked into the eyes of the bride, there was no way her family could not be at that wedding. They were there in her eyes. I saw the spirits just dancing there, and they could not boycott this wedding. And that's the origin of this poem that I wrote. It's called "All of Your Ancestors Come to Your Wedding." By horse, by canoe, they come, dressed in grass skirts and beaver pelt hats. They bring amphorae of wine, barrels of ancient beer. They fight, belch, kiss both cheeks. They hug too tight, make ribald jokes. They embarrass you utterly. They paint flowers on your face and weave sunshine in your hair. They smoke sacred herbs, chant, pound on drums, sing in lost language. They puff music on hollowed bamboo, dance in circles, juggle flaming torches. They draw antelope on the walls of your cave. As dowry, they bring generations of struggle, millenniums of sacrifice. They will come to your wedding, whether you invite them or not. Wish them welcome. Uh, I uh, I got an email one day out of the blue from London, England, from Kew Gardens in London, England, asking me to write a poem that they would post on a giant billboard in their redwood grove. And how they got my name, I've never been to England, um, but somehow I've got this reputation as the redwood poet. And I mean, I wrote a poem about redwoods that was translated into all kinds of languages. So somehow that got out there. Anyway, so they asked me to write a poem, and they said, by the way, we'll pay you for it. So I'm right on it. And immediately my mind froze. Just went blank. Um, you told you must write a poem about this one thing, and forget it. Um, so I asked my wife, what would you say about a redwood grove? And she said, they always seem to know what they're doing. And that did it. That was the perspective I needed. And I entered the poem. And anyway, here's a poem. It was on a giant billboard in Kew Gardens. I don't think it's there anymore. And I mean, what's a redwood grove doing in London? But anyway, um, this is called Because a Redwood Grove. Because naturally, upon entering, you lower your voice. Because through branches on high, fluffs of fog drift in shafts of sunlight. Because you've met this feeling in cathedral, mosque, temple. Because a redwood seems always to know what it's doing. Because your body feels small. Because your spirit grows large. Because a redwood with its power will never preach, makes no demands, sips from the clouds, swallows the sunlight, shelters the chipmunk, the owl, you. Because the redwood takes the long view. Because the redwood withstands flame, has kinship to stone, to river and earth, to the patience of stars, to the holy. Because you forgot the question, but a redwood grove is the answer. Uh, I live in a redwood. I live under redwood trees. I'm in La Honda, California, which is a little downhill from Neil Young's ranch and a little uphill from Ken Kesey's cabin. Um, so I was saying we live in the. I love that. This is even this. I'm 20 miles from Silicon Valley, and it's there's the Wild West out here. I've got a whole mountain between myself and the valley. And here's a poem from one of the jobs I did in the mountains here. Lester and Maggie and the four-wheel bed. Gruff gray Lester. Oh, let me start over. Gruff gray Lester and Navajo Maggie have no offspring, but treat me like one. For Lester, I knocked down a wall and installed fat rubber wheels under that walnut monster of a double bed they've shared for 60 years. So he can roll Maggie to the dining room and kitchen. Maggie of Dawn, Lester says. She keeps an eye on me. Maggie's delighted. Room to room, joking and chattering, sometimes in Navajo, and you get used to the scent of urine. Rolling is difficult for Lester, who limps, and later more cumbersome with oxygen tanks. So I'm replacing cupped floorboards when Maggie, who is watching me work, points to a pair of coyotes. One large, wary male, one smaller, calm female. Outside the window, sitting on haunches by the broken down tractor, staring right at us. Not unusual for a ranch house outside town, but then we hear a gurgling sound like water in a drain. Lester, a big man, leaps to Maggie's side, bends his head to her heart, while outside in broad daylight, those coyotes start to howl. The two. Aroo! It tingles. The air itself seems to glow. Lester grabs his rifle from the wall and runs to the window, but those coyotes don't flinch. Aroo! He lowers the gun with shaky hands, says, they're calling her home. A couple weeks later, after the service, Lester, in his old wedding suit, tight and ragged, hands me a cardboard box containing the wheels he's removed. And there's a note. For the next, help them go home. Now, I'm no coyote, but that box is on the top shelf in the garage. I'm telling you, son, so you'll know. People ask me, is that true? My first answer is, poetry is not journalism. It always starts true. So let's leave it at that. Um, let's do a short poem. Let's lighten up a little bit. Um, Little frogs are hopping. Little frogs are hopping from the pond to the weeds, hopping in the headlight beams, across wet asphalt, through strings of drizzle, hopping where my car can only squash them. So I stop. You take my hand. Thank you, you say. You like frogs. There is another route, an extra mile. I back up, turn around. More cars will come, I say. Again, you take my hand. That's on them, you say. We do what we can do, and maybe, just maybe, we spared a prince. I've done about 15 minutes here. You want me to go on? Okay. Um, I'm going to skip ahead to one about my high school teacher. I don't use his real name here. It's funny. I mean, I out him as gay in the poem, and that was 60 some years ago, and I still don't feel right outing him. I mean, I don't know what anyway. So I changed his name. Mr. Hilton. My Uber driver with bushy. Oh, wow. All right. My Uber driver with bushy white beard says, "Wowza," with a memorable pitch not heard since high school as he conveys me skillfully, rapidly up and down the streets of San Francisco. So I say, "Excuse me, but did you once used to teach 11th grade English in Montgomery County, Maryland?" For half a minute, he grimaces, shakes his head. "Awkward," he says. "Did you once used to? Wowza." In memory, I drown, speechless. I'm the kid who doodled poems, stories for nobody and for no purpose until clean shaven Mr. Hilton praised and encouraged and cheered. Back then, he was gay and couldn't say. Quoted Walt Whitman in a sing-songy voice. Sometimes he'd vow to quit teaching and drive a taxi around D.C. and write a novel about political muckety-mucks. Did you write a novel? I asked. Drove taxi. And wrote a novel? Not exactly. You were my best teacher. Thank you. He grins. You just made my day. He studies me, eyes in the mirror. Who are you? I tell him my name and say, You inspired me. Inspired what? I tell him I write poetry. Sorry, he says. A miserable occupation. The ride ends, and I say, You changed my life. To be honest, he says, I don't remember you. Thank you for discovering me. Nonsense. Wowza. You were always there. He won't accept it. A little note about writing poetry. His his signature sound was not wowza, but his signature sound couldn't be conveyed in a poem. He had this, he'd go, when you said something that he liked, he'd go, like that. Mmm. But you can't convey that as well in a poem. So wowza is a substitute. Technical note there. Uh, a reading, I, I was surprised to discover in this particular book, there's only one dog poem, which is very unlike me. I don't know what happened, but I want to honor that in this reading by reading my one dog poem of this book. So here we go. It's called Ghost Dogs. Ghosts of every dog who ever owned you fetch you from your bed to lead you unleashed through moonless forest. Ghost dogs pause to study scat of bobcat, blossom of possum, suit of love-struck newt. Four-footed cannonballs boom through brush, chasing a rabbit who always escapes, and dogs ask with shiny eyes, Why won't you help? Your senses elevated to canine pitch, you hear footsteps of spiders on the hunt, snores of squirrels cuddled in nests, heartbeat of snake, spooky silence of owl. As panting tongue flapping, you gallop with spirits who can smell your fatigue. Yes, they guide you home. They replenish your water. They pour kibbles of comfort, a bowl for your soul. Unseen, they curl on your bed. Unconditional, they love you still. I think I'm ready to wrap it up. Could I just end with the title poem of the book? Just it seems like it ought to be there. This is called The Opposite of Hate. And I wrote this during the pandemic. A magazine editor contacted me and said, I need a poem about the opposite of hate. And this came out. She never published it. The magazine folded before it ever came out. Pandemic, everything was such a mess. Anyway, the poem remains. The opposite of hate. Singing in the shower, peanut butter, daisies, weathered barn boards are the opposite of hate. Playmate, roller skate, rhyme is the opposite of hate. Balloons, the only thing you should ever blow up is a balloon. Skinny dips, swimming hole, hot afternoon, buck naked is the opposite of hate. So, thank you.
Such a treat, Joe, to be able to hear these aloud. And no matter what you read, it's always one of my favorites. So just thank you for sharing your time and the book. And just thank you so much. Such an honor.
I'm just so honored that so many people showed up. Gosh, I'm humbled.
That's great. Great to have you here. Okay, we have been listening intently to Joe Cottonwood's Buck Naked is the Opposite of Hate, available from Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. So grab your copy today. We are going to move now into our invited mic portion of the evening. We just have 4 past contributors to Sheila-Na-Gig Online, sharing a couple poems each. And I don't often read my own stuff at these things, but we didn't have a ton of readers signed up, so I'm going to read one of mine. And it's a winter poem, but I just wrote it a couple weeks ago, so imagine winter. And we talk about, how we get inspired for things. My local therapist put a picture of himself making snow angels on the top of his work building, and he put that on Facebook. And I said, I'm going to write that poem. And he's like, okay, yeah, go ahead and do that. And so I did. So this is called Angels. The Ohio River is trying to freeze. Ice floes cracking as the coal barges make their sluggish way through. The Kentucky hills and hollers glaze over. Roads impassable, schools close, parents call off work, and our small town stays home, doom scrolling, quick changing weather reports and the latest White House agendas. Democracy heaves a sigh as it shifts beneath our feet, chipped bit by bit like ice at the edge of our driveways. ICE agents gather outside Home Depots, colleges, and courthouses as though all of America is freezing. On every newscast and social media reel is Epstein, the nation's poster pedophile, daily reminding the abused of our man-made traumas. The collective PTSD unconsciousness of generations of survivors surfaces in our sleeplessness, our restlessness, our easy anger at children and spouses. The nightmares we thought we had thawed with after-work wine and telehealth analysis reform in images of all the hard work we've left to do. Across town, Therapy Steve traverses Ashland's pre-dawn streets, readying himself to embrace our darkness. 2 blocks away, the Ohio groans, and Steve thinks, I'll make a snow angel. Riding to the top of tri-state counseling and psychotherapy, he does, impressing his full body into freshly fallen snow. A single perfect swipe of his arms becomes wings, brightening in the sunrise, lifting above the weight of our heavy winter, comforting us with the knowledge that someone is out there keeping watch over us all. All right. That's the latest from me. I don't get to write them very often, but when they come, I write them down. So there we go. All right. For our readers tonight, I did put the reading order in the chat. If you can see that, there's just a few of us to go. And we are starting off with Haylee Schwenk.
Hi. Thanks, Haley, and great reading, both of you. Enjoyed all of those poems. The first one I'm going to read is from the spring issue of Sheila-Na-Gig Online. It's called Eating Grapefruit Over the Sink. I'm alone in the house this morning, scoring the rind with a small knife, peeling it like an orange, unwilling to waste those bits the spoon can never quite remove. The outer skin comes off easily. The first pull releases tiny droplets of citrus-scented oils, revealing the thick, bitter pith, and I reflect that I am of the bitter, white part, descendant of farmers who came and took land, little thought for who cherished the forests they turned into fields, building their stone houses, frame barns and churches, breaking the soil and storing up goods. They built fences, too, separated German from Scots-Irish, Lutheran from Catholic and Quaker, 10 generations, until I am alone this morning, birdsong muted by triple pane glass. And the second one I'm going to read is something I wrote pretty recently. I call it War in Iran, and it's a poem following the Fibonacci sequence. We do know how we'll be judged when this is over, this latest senseless war we caused, or allowed by our greed, inaction, easy comfort. Each bloodstain, each dead child, each wailing mother, each schoolhouse open to the smoke-filled sky. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to read 2 poems. One is for a friend and colleague who died way too young, and she was an Emily Dickinson scholar. The poem is called The Simple News That Nature Tells, for Kristen Sanner. At forest's edge, sumac's the most precocious at letting in the end, pointing flaming fingers as if warning its neighbor oaks and maples. But if we dwell in possibility, can nature's simple prose tell the whole tale? Following the chemo, you came back to us festooned in a wig, the same bittersweet tint as 10-year-old Emily's short waves in the portrait with sister and brother that we visited as pilgrims in her parlor. Each succeeding fall, you'd show up on campus insouciant as chrysanthemums planted along sidewalks in place of dusty pansies, your grin wickedly cheerful as you tapped down corridors from class to class in heels you only kicked off when you had to use a cane. I don't know if you prayed except in poems. Still, you said I could, asking if I prayed to saints or friends in high places, as you called them, suggesting I try Mother Teresa, who needed one more miracle to make the grade. Well, Teresa didn't make it to sainthood via you. Anyway, isn't Emily more your kind of angel? Timid as a star, wild as the all-white corpse plant hidden in the woods, her preferred flower of life. If poems are possibilities, here's the one I pray for. Let's say you awaken from this life in a slender sleigh bed akin to hers. Draw the Turkish coverlet around your narrow shoulders and slip out the back door into the garden. A fairer house than prose, where no bloom needs pressing between pages to preserve it, a barefoot neighbor from another world, a sister shade and debauchee of dew. So, thanks. The other poem is a poem written after kind of a silence between my sister and me. It's called The Late Gift from My Sister. After your long summer silence, you post this photo, and I wonder where you've been hiding this early version of our mother in a satin two-piece from the 40s, the top coning her breasts, her long, slim legs pressed tight as she lounges on the sand, a landed mermaid. And why have I never seen it? Though I'm not the only one to view it, I now see you're sharing her image as an offering, a message, a reminder of the source of our own youthful beauty decades ago as foreseen by Dad's camera, years before he taught us how to swim in this same lake, before the tadpoles of his sperm squiggled up to meet her eggs and make us. For here we meet again in Mom's sleek beauty, in Mom's sleek body, her flat tummy in the smile that warmed each morning of our childhood. Here we are, before we knew her, our muse and sage who could settle any squabble long before she taught us how to love each other.
I'm Marjorie Maddox, and I'm going to read two poems from this new book, Hover Here. And much of the book was written during a residency in Maine. And I had this wonderful studio, and there was a balcony, and it looked up over a lake in the morning. So this first one is Lone Boat on the Lake at Dawn. Not still, but still a still point among two diving loons and one blackbird flecked with red and barely balancing atop the tallest pine this side of the lake. Even morning is relative, shadows undulating with waves slight as breath, amber almost out of reach but ebbing closer. The way I hear you inside, stirring, deciding whether to rise and recognize off to the side of our vast bodies of deep and shallow waters, the one small lone boat, green maybe, or gray, floating a stranger whose face even now I cannot see, but who may be looking out at us, two different points of still, before each of us cast our lines of sight, real in the morning that soon, in the limited minutes of beginnings, will be moving, moving, moving. And this poem, I guess, Joe, I'm going to kind of read this for you because it's about an orthopedic surgeon when I had my rotator cuff surgery. But I wrote about him many years later because he was also in the Boston Marathon the year that the terrorist attack took place. So this is called My Orthopedic Surgeon Sprints Across the Finish Line. His fine-toned over 50 copper calves and thighs pumping a frenzied beat of joy amidst high fives, mid-afternoon applause, and victory cries on Boylston, now crammed curb to curb with those he doesn't need to heal, until, pausing to breathe more deeply, he hears the world crack. Clad in sweat, not scrubs, he pivots in time to see smoke lacerate the sky. And this is not the end, not even the starting block to violence he stopped running by, stopped pretending he doesn't feel each time he examines the brown bodies he knows only upon examination within his safe doctor walls. Not near that house where he doesn't live, or that park where he doesn't run, or the street corners where maybe someday he'll also get stopped, or frisked, or beat, or shot. A corner where others watch or scream, but nothing stops. No running away from that. No running at all. Thanks.
Hard act to follow. Thanks for having me. And Joe, it's a pleasure to be here on your feature. Really nice. And I'm in El Cerrito, by the way. So I'm going to read a poem. Do you realize it's been more than a few years since the Summer of Love exhibit at the DeYoung Museum in San Francisco? That was in 2017. So that's the highlight of this poem. It's called Motel Room Without a Nightlight. I open doors in the middle of the night. Like a game show, 3 knobs where I have to choose. What can I do except stub my toe? My husband and I have arrived to follow birds, hiked coastal trails, eat local bread encrusted with sesame seeds, not to escape our friend taken to the ICU and his wife's recap of each new protocol. A few years ago, he helped curate the Summer of Love exhibit. We followed him through galleries, heard about Better Living Through Chemistry, a poster on psychedelics. Heard how he met Ben, whose visual acid footage covered the audience, the walls, the band on stage at Winterland. As we filed through the exhibit, color and image stained our skin. We heard about the March to End the Vietnam War poster, where my father, in the VW Squareback, drove our friend to Kezar, up and down San Francisco hills, along with his mother, because he wasn't old enough. Heard about the poster, Help, the Oracle Needs You Today, the Haight-Ashbury Underground paper. And this week, he is installed in the new cancer center, harboring tumors so plentiful, there's no middle back left. Today, on our hike to Point Reyes, down to the sea, we didn't know he received his first chemo drip. Told by nurses he could hallucinate. He found an aura in the room, flashes of color, found oneness because he knows how to love. And here I am in the middle of the night, trying to find my way, standing still for a minute. There's a full moon coming through the skylight. And this poem is in my new book, which you'll see on my Facebook page. A different experience than with my first book. And I'm going to read a poem that Marjorie might appreciate. It's on baseball. Enjoyed hearing her read from her new book, her baseball book. This is a poem from April, so kind of fresh. It's called, I Watched the Coach Pull a Boy from His Mother. The leather glove twists the center of his palm where there are no seams, trying to change boy into glove. I can't help stopping on my walk around the park, want to keep an eye on the game. The youngest boys of our town Same shirts, only different colors. And all right, I want to be the keeper of that little boy, a bundle of energy. Know the moment a coach acts from years ago when my pudgy brother wavered like a strand of grass, like on family hikes where we'd pause for my father to press the shutter, sun shooting into a clear sky. Watching my brother, I wanted to grab the mitt, the ball, the bat, save him from embarrassment or my own. My mother in the stands would lick her fingers when she bit her cuticles, dead skin without ceremony. 2 years older, could I have traced the trajectory of who he would become? A man with muscles frozen, arm not swinging, the baseball diamond of his mind empty. Today, the kid can't catch a break. I've seen how a body slips out, pain pooling, but his muscles are young. All he needs is toweling off. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Laurel, and our other open mic readers. Always great to hear all of you wonderful contributors from Sheila-Na-Gig Online, and the lovely, more famous than he realizes, Joe Cottonwood, right? Can't understand how we've seen his work all over the place. So great to have you here, Joe, and everybody. So celebrating Buck Naked is the opposite of hate. So catch it at Sheila-Na-Gig Online. We are Sheila-Na-Gig. What are we? Sheila-Na-Gig-blog.com is where we're at. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.